Hey guys, welcome to another review, and welcome to my review for the movie Elvis. Yes, Elvis stars Austin Butler and Tom Hanks, and the movie is directed by Baz Luhrmann, a very mixed bag director, to say the least. I've always been a little meh on Baz Luhrmann as a filmmaker. He doesn't really make a shit ton of movies, but every time he does make movies, they're all sort of like style over substance kind of films. Like, I like Moulin Rouge. It's a jukebox musical, which is something I never usually like, but that's a great example of style over substance. Same with like The Great Gatsby and Romeo and Juliet. Very stylistic filmmaker. And some people love Baz Luhrmann. Me, I'm okay on him. And when I found out he was doing an Elvis movie, and even when the trailers came out, I was a little skeptical on it, because I didn't know how they were going to portray Elvis, and I know a lot of biopics nowadays, they're not really doing biopics justice nowadays, especially with like a Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff. I really enjoyed Rocket Man. I thought that was a very cool way to tell the story of Elton John and stuff, but there have been some pretty disappointing biopics in the past few years, and I was super afraid this was going to be another Bohemian Rhapsody. It's not. It's a much better film than Bohemian Rhapsody. I would actually say Elvis is a good movie. There are a ton of problems with the film, but I still think it's a good film nonetheless. The movie is about Elvis Presley's career in the span of 20 years, and it's all through the eyes of his manager, who's played by Tom Hanks, who is one hell of an unlikable character, like complete piece of shit. And it talks about the rise and fall of Elvis, him performing in like Vegas, and talking about his drug addiction and all that stuff, and his very rocky relationship with his manager. And the movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's a very long film, and they do gloss over some very important things. But some of the stuff that they do in this movie, I respect. I absolutely respect. For one thing, I gotta address the elephant in the room, which is the biggest praise you can give this movie is Austin Butler as Elvis Presley. He is spectacular in this film. He is so good. I'm not even overly familiar with Austin Butler as an actor, but I loved his performance as Elvis Presley. I think he is sensational. I think he brought to life of Elvis Presley in this film. He made him sympathetic, charismatic, and he created so much intrigue and so many layers to the icon himself of Elvis Presley. And I really loved watching his performance. It was the biggest highlight of the film. It was the best part of the film, is Austin Butler. I think he gives an Oscar-worthy performance. I absolutely loved it. He pretty much was Elvis Presley. And he also added his own style, because there have been other actors who've played Elvis in films. This is the most unique and original way to play Elvis. And just absolute respect to Austin Butler. Also, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is also pretty good in this film. I think he's not used to playing like the unlikable, kind of in a way antagonist in a film. He's always the hero. He's always the lovable character in the films. In most of his films he plays in. So him playing a role like this is so different and so weird, but it was good. It was a good performance, and Tom Hanks play like you really like hate this character, and Tom Hanks milks it up and is really good. And the dynamics between Elvis Presley and what's his name, Tom Colonel, the Colonel. I call him the Colonel. Between the dynamics of them, their rocky relationship is very fascinating. I do think Tom Hanks gets a little too much screen time. I wish the whole movie was just Austin Butler. Tom Hanks gets a lot more screen time than I thought he would, and I didn't like that, but they were both solid in this film, though. Also, the music, the Elvis music, is great. If you're a huge Elvis Presley fan, you're gonna get the great songs, all the most iconic, popular Elvis songs. And hearing them all in the movie was just an absolute blast to hear. And like I said, this is Baz Luhrmann. He's a very stylistic director. And this movie is very stylized. It's shots, it's editing, it's just whole format of its storytelling. Very stylistic. And some of it is really cool. It's very intriguing. The movie tries very hard not to be like too boring. They do a lot of quick edits and they do a lot of like quick gloss overs and stuff. Fast-paced editing. Some of the editing is very clever. Some of it's a bit jarring, but it's done in a very interesting way that at moments I thought was really clever. I loved all the concert scenes with Elvis. They were done very well shot, very well edited. And there is, at moments, some very fine direction by Baz Luhrmann in this film. And yeah, also the costumes. The costumes were fantastic. I loved it. Production, terrific. Also a very good and probably going to be an underappreciated score with this film. Very good, very good. And there was a couple of moments like about culture and like even cancel culture in this film that they talked about, some issues they talked about in this film. I thought was fascinating and very mature, and I liked that they talked about these things. And even some of the controversies Elvis Presley went through, and they talked about these issues, and I liked it. And they don't paint Elvis always in like this lovable light, because he was not always the most likable guy, but he still has very likable moments, and he was an icon to music, and they show all of that in this film, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think all in all, the story is good, the writing is good enough, the performances by the two leads are spectacular, and there's some really cool style to this film, and there's a lot of engaging and super entertaining moments from start to finish. And I had fun with this movie, and it's a very good film. But it has its issues. It does have its issues. For one thing, again, like I said, they focus so much on the Colonel, and I wanted more of Elvis. Also, the movie has this PG-13 rating, and the movie could have went R-rated. And I don't know why it didn't go the full R, because they show a lot of brutal things in this film. And I'm like, they might as well just push the limit to the R rating. I don't know why they were holding back. Elvis Presley did some crazy shit. Just like what they did with Bohemian Rhapsody. I wish Bohemian Rhapsody was an R-rated film, because Freddie Mercury did a lot of crazy shit. Elvis Presley did too. All musicians and rock stars do crazy shit. I don't know why they didn't just take the PG-13 and turn it into an R-rated film. They should have done that. I don't know why they didn't. Also, this movie's 2 hours and 40 minutes. And it's a very engaging film. But there are things that they should have took out and replaced. Like, again, some of the Tom Hanks scenes and a couple other scenes, that just absolutely go nowhere. They could have focused more on Elvis's romantic relationships and some more music industry things. And like, there's other things they should have talked about. But no, they focused on things that they shouldn't have focused on. So I feel like at times, not all the time, but at times the film had a lack of focus, which was an issue for me. Huge issue. Also, there's some weird music choices. I think all the Elvis and classic music is great, but when they put some of the modern music in this film, it just kind of took me out. I'm like, wait, what the fuck is this? I don't know why they put some modern music in it. I thought it was very cringe and just kind of ridiculous. And again, other than the Colonel and Elvis, all the side characters are very forgettable. And there's a lot of people that influenced Elvis Presley. And I wish they just dived more deeper into those characters, not just the Colonel and just Elvis Presley. But again, the Colonel and Elvis Presley are both great in this film. I think the film is very good. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're a huge Elvis Presley fan. But there are moments, there's stuff I just wanted more from. I wanted it to be more dark and gritty. I wanted the focus to stay mostly on Elvis and maybe his romantic relationships and more his relationships with the music industry and stuff. I wanted more focus on that instead of the Colonel and stuff. And I wish there wasn't some quick edits in some moments because they're talking about some very important things, but then they cut away and go to somewhere else. I'm like, no, stay on that conversation. I want to know more about that. But Baz Luhrmann's all about the quick edits and the quickness, and he doesn't want there to be boring moments, but there are times there were boring moments. So, again, the film has a lack of focus, and it does have some jarring moments, and there's a little bit of shakiness to it, and just, the film could have been spectacular, but it just ended up being a good movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a good movie, but I feel like there's a really spectacular film in this. Maybe it was lost in the editing, maybe, I don't know, some things were changed around, but I feel like there's something even better in the roots of this film. Still, it's a good movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's solid. I'm glad I watched it. I definitely would recommend it, but I think it had potential to be something truly great. But hey, that's just my opinion.